Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about books. Okay. What are books? Books are books are a kind of writing where you have some kind of prologue, some kind of mid part, and some kind of epilogue, and you have a description of some of the things. Okay, like a thriller. When you say a thriller is a kind of story that's written by some novelist with words in proper place and adjectives to give a different kind of meaning plus and other things. Okay, that is why audiobooks and other things are written. First, you have to know how to write some of the books. But here we'll take an example of what an audiobook looks like, and we'll see how it works, and like later we'll see what are the things. So first thing we are taking, I wrote books, and this is giving me free audio books. Okay, let's see how to install. So it's just downloading. Okay, now it's got all the things right now. And it's going almost going to finish. Okay, now it's over. Okay, now we got thing, and now you say you want to install another thing. So we'll see how it's going to install, and then find out how it's going to work. So this is some kind of audio book. Audio book is something like something to do with visual talk and other things. Okay, people who tell stories, like mostly people who are into literature, literature stories, history stories, and other things. Okay, so you don't have to know some of the things, but what is a book is what you have to know, and how it works and things like that. Okay, now today we are going to look up what is called an audio book and other things. Okay, now I say accept. Okay, now I go into explore. Okay, now I go into explore. Okay, now I gone into explore. Okay, I got some of the books. I'm going to read some of the books. I'm going to download one of the books. Okay, let's see how we download one of them. This is one of the books I'm downloading. Okay, downloading. Okay, now I've downloaded one of the books, and I'm going to find out what is the thing written by one of the book writers. Okay, now I'm going to use audio book. Why we want to use audio book is because some of the words and other things, how they phrase the words and how they use the things, and how the voice is good enough for listening, and some of the books are written by multiple voices. Okay, that multiple voice gives you an attraction of like how the background is and things like. Sometimes they give you sounds like like dog howling and things like that. Those are the background. Looks like some kind of natural kind of thing. Okay, let's see what is this one I'm doing. The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes. This is the first book. Let's see how we read it. Okay, now I'm going to start it. And so now I'm going to start the book. Okay, now it's loading the book, and I'm going to listen to how a Sherlock Holmes a book is written. So it's trying for waiting for stream.
Chapter 1 of The
Okay,
Adventures
now
of
it
Sherlock
started reading.
Holmes.
Okay, now
This
it
is a
started.
LibriVox recording.
This
All
started reading.
LibriVox
Now we want
recordings
to
are in the
stop
public.
and listen to the books properly. Then it is going to give you stop. Okay, now let's see who is going to read the book. It might be somebody who is reading the book. So today a book is written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Coffin Doyle. Okay, the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, we have to know the author. The author is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Conan Doyle. Okay, Conan Doyle. Okay, how do you pronounce this? I don't know, but still it's okay. So now we start the
All
clock.
LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Adventure 1, A Scandal in Bohemia. To Sherlock Holmes, she is always the woman. I have seldom heard him mention her under any other name. In his eyes, she eclipses and predominates the whole of her sex. It was not that he felt any emotion akin to love for Irene Adler. All emotions, and that one particularly, were abhorrent to his cold, precise, but admirably balanced mind. He was, I take it, the most perfect reasoning and observing machine that the world has seen. But as a lover, he would have placed himself in a false position. He never spoke of the softer passions, save with a gibe and a sneer. They were admirable things for the observer, excellent for drawing the veil from men's motives and actions. But for the trained reasoner to admit such intrusions into his own delicate and finely adjusted temperament was to introduce a distracting factor which might throw a doubt upon all his mental results. Grit in a sensitive instrument, or a crack in one of his own high-power lenses, would not be more disturbing than a strong emotion in a nature such as his. And yet there was but one woman to him, and that woman was the late Irene Adler, of dubious and questionable memory. I had seen little of Holmes lately. My marriage had drifted us away from each other. My own complete happiness and the home-centered interests which rise up around the man who first finds himself master of his own establishment was sufficient to absorb all my attention, while Holmes, who loathed every form of society with his whole bohemian soul, remained in our lodgings in Baker Street, buried among his old books, and alternating from week to week between cocaine and ambition, the drowsiness of the drug, and the fierce energy of his own keen nature. He was still, as ever, deeply attracted by the study of crime, and occupied his immense faculties and extraordinary powers of observation in following out those clues and clearing up those mysteries which had been abandoned as hopeless by the official police. From time to time, I heard some vague account of his doings, of his summons to Odessa in the case of the Trepoff murder, of his clearing up of the singular tragedy of the Atkinson brothers at Trincomalee, and finally of the mission which he had accomplished so delicately and successfully for the reigning family of Holland. Beyond these signs of his activity, however, for Arlet, I was seized with a keen the blind. It was not effusive, it seldom was, but he was glad, I think, to see me. With hardly a word spoken, but
Okay, this is a book written by Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is actually a person who writes novels. Okay, now novels are written in different perspective. One of the things is Sherlock Holmes, the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, is a kind of book which was written as an detective, or kind of like a person who is trying to find solve a murder case and things like that. Okay, the way the book is written is by different chapters. Okay, the four different. First, he gives what is called an introduction. Introduction kind of thing is like who is the author, who writes the thing, and he comes up with a kind of book cover and other things. Okay, then after that, he starts writing his book. Once he starts writing his book, he have a prologue. Prologue is a kind of thing which is given at the beginning of what actually the book is all about. Like mostly the thing is like it might be literature, it might be science, it might be kind of detective novels, and like a thriller. So this comes under the kind of thriller or an adventure kind of thing. Okay, it might be a fake thing or it might be a true thing. Okay, some of the things mostly is how somebody's brain works. Most of the brain works in a different fashion. Okay, when somebody is in a particular job or something like that, say a cop is in the or sheriff is in one of the job, then he has this kind of different kind of brain of how to detect a particular murder, or kind of serial murder and other things, how people die and things like that. So he is interested in those kind of things, and for that he is giving an introduction. That's saying that how I'm going to detect all these people, or might be he is taking them and slowly catching all the thieves and other kind of people who are the murderers of the society and things like that. So this is a book which is written by Sherlock Holmes back in the 1960s or 70s or something like that. So this is a good book. It has got about chapters. Okay, now a scandal in Bohemia, the Red Heading League, a case of identity, the Bassam Valley mystery. Okay, the five org pipe, the man with the twisted tip, and the adventure of the blue concubine, carbuncle. Okay, the adventure of the speckled band. Okay, the adventure of the ingenious thumb. Okay, the adventure of the noble bachelor. Okay, then after the adventure of the coronet berlin coronet. Okay, the adventure of the copper beaches. So he has divided into 12 chapters and he has given the adventures of each one of those. This is the first adventure he is talking about. Okay, so there he explains all the things and the complete voice is given for that. It comes to around an hour to read out all the things. Let's see how it goes progresses. Okay, now we saw the preface, then we have an introduction, then after that the story starts. Story starts, he gives you the background. First thing you have to always give a background how the story starts. Okay, background is a kind of situation or a scene like thing. Okay, a scene like thing is like, say you are in Delhi or Bombay or Calcutta, and which place you are in. Okay, so those kind of things. Okay, and what day it is, what kind of time it is, and how you are going to
Holmes caught me by the
use the
wrist
thing.
and
Okay,
pushed me
those kind
back.
of things. This is called the background knowledge. The first thing is he gives an introduction of the background things, how the situation is, what kind of situation it is, and how he is going to explore all the things and other things. But he has used the language in the proper order or a proper, kind of proper kind of writing style in which he will attract people. Okay, that is the basic thing you have to understand. You cannot write a book in a way that it is not very attractive, or kind of like sometimes it's not too attractive, sometimes the words are not okay, so those kind of things. Okay, this is just an example of things. Okay, so you don't have to write unless you know complete literature and you go to a calm place and you start writing books, you won't know most of the things. Okay, but it just gives you a background. Usually people go to different places. Say you go to Bombay and you're in a situation where you get hit by a car and you're in the middle of a hospital, and you know the kind of situations that run in and how do you escape, and how there you see somebody else, and then like you get caught into that thing and some people are murdered there and things like that. So those kind of novel it is. Okay, and then you come back and you sit and relax and you start writing a book about what happened to you. Or sometimes it might be an imagination kind of thing where people saw certain things and they have to explain all the background. They have to create all the situation. Then they have to explain who is who and things like introduction of all the people within the group and other things, what kind of group it was and what kind of situation it was, and how to explain all the different kinds of seasons, time, and dress code and all the things. Those kind of things are explained within the writing skills. So you have to have the writing skills. First thing is you cannot go straight away say something about Sherlock Holmes. First thing you have to sit down and write and properly put the coding in the proper position. Then you have to sit down, think and write it, rephrase it, so that you can have a nice flow of language and other things. Okay, so that is the first thing that is needed. You have to sit down and calm down, and you have to write chapter by chapter with full imagination, and the word flow should be very nice so that people can understand, or they are put in the same mood as how Holmes goes and finds all the detectives and finds all the murder and things like that. Okay, so it's a kind of like thriller. by your mind is tuned into that kind of body, and for some time it behaves like that, and it will just find out how he has written the novel, so that you're part of it and you have some kind of experience of the things, and you understand quite a bit of things how the world is.
Holmes caught me by
Okay,
the wrist and
let's
pushed me
listen
back
to it.
into my chair. "It is both or none," said he. "You may say before this gentleman anything which you may say to me." The Count shrugged his broad shoulders. "Then I must begin," said he, "by binding you both to absolute secrecy for 2 years. At the end of that time, the matter will be of no importance. At present, it is not too much to say that it is of such weight, it may have an influence upon European history." "I promise," said Holmes. "And I." "You will excuse this mask," continued our strange visitor. "The august person who employs me wishes his agent to be unknown to you. I may confess at once that the title by which I have just called myself is not exactly my own." "I was aware of it," said Holmes dryly. "The circumstances are of great delicacy, and every precaution has to be taken to quench what might grow to be an immense scandal and seriously compromise one of the reigning families of Europe. To speak plainly, the matter implicates the great house of Ormstein, hereditary kings of Bohemia." "I was also aware of that," murmured Holmes, settling himself down in his armchair and closing his eyes. Our visitor glanced with some apparent surprise at the languid, lounging figure of the man who had been no doubt depicted to him as the most incisive reasoner and most energetic agent in Europe. Holmes slowly reopened his eyes and looked impatiently at his gigantic client. "If your Majesty would condescend to state your case," he remarked.
Okay, so now we have listened some of the things, how he wrote. And he is written it in the same way I told you, okay? The thing is, like, he is explaining the things, then he is imagining things, then how the other people will think, and how he answers the thing, and how he writes a story. So with interludes of, like in between kind of thing, explaining what the situation is and other things, okay? So now we have seen the book, how to read a book, how to listen to a book, okay? This kind of books, which is like an author which is written by some author, so those kind of books are written just for different kinds of books are written, okay? Some are kind of like literature books, some are kind of like explaining history about the 50th century, some of the things are about natural disasters, some of the things are like how people died, how they were murdered, and things like that. So these kind of things they explain, but we are not literature students, but the whole thing is how the things happen, the way it is explained. These are the things which gives a complete perspective, because you don't have a video or something like that to show everything, okay, of the past, or kind of other things, but you have a vivid memory of the thing in your brain, and you just explain the whole thing, okay? This is what the whole thing is about. Okay, now let's see how it happens next thing, okay? Now this is over for now, okay? So these are chapters he has written, and he has put in, okay? A scandal in Bohemia. This is scandal he's talking about in Bohemia. Bohemia is a place, and a scandal in Bohemia, like how a scandal happened in Bohemia. So he has got different chapters. Sherlock Holmes has written a beautiful novels, okay? He has written adventures of so many other things, okay? So he has written a set of serial, like music players, like the music artists are there, like Bill Gates, no, Bee Gees, other music artists are there, like that. He has written a book, and this book gives a convincing evidence of what he is and how he is, and what are the different history, what kind of history was there during that time. When somebody says Stever pot, you won't understand what a Stever pot is. During 1960s, they were using that kind of pots, but now we don't have those things right now. So when you look at a word like that, he will be wondering what is that he is using a word like that. Okay, so those kind of things are there, but you have to understand those things, and it gives you a complete history kind of thing. You know, those days it was they had only grasslands, and you know they were speckled crows and things like that. So when he says speckled crows, you know, now there is no crow like that. Okay, there is no speckled crow now. But we have, in those days it was available. So it gives you a history, it gives you a background, it tells you what are the things available during those times. You can study science through that and other things. Okay, but now it's okay. We are going to close this book right now. So they have different authors like this. This is the free audiobooks which we saw. Okay, this gives quite a bit of information. What is information is like about the past, how some kind of how a revolution happened, industrial revolution happened in Europe, how people developed all the things, those kind of things. And books gives a complete gist of the past or might be the present and how people thought about the future. That also is given. Okay, that is also there, and how much of thinking is science and technology also is like that. Okay, they have a suggested book reading, how to read a book and how to get the book. Now this is one of the audio book readers which I got, and I wanted to explain the things how to go about reading an audio book and how to get go into a kind of trance where you can get much of the information of the past and how to assemble those information and get a clear glimpse of how people were in those days and things like that. The history, or what are the things they were using. Like if you say Stone Age, people use some kind of sharp instrument like TDR or something like that. You won't know what is a trapper or something like that. A word will be used, but that word will be understood only in those contexts. It won't be understood by modern people or something like that. But still, you know how it was used and what kind of things it was there, and you can get a full history kind of thing, and how they dressed, how they adorned themselves, and what kind of clothes they were using, what kind of things were. So these books give you a complete gist of how those time period was there and what kind of things people were using. Okay. Now for now it's okay. So we'll go back, and then we saw how to install a free audio book and how to listen to books. Okay, the books are a good place where you can get most of the thing. Okay, good books are kind essentially they once you get an audio book and things like that, it gives you a complete gist of history. Okay, so it is a very nice book. You can just switch it on and you can go to sleep and then listen slowly, and then you can, because reading books is very difficult because you have to use your eyes and stay in it, and then sometimes you might be remembering, sometimes you not be remembering. But when you listen to audio books like this, it gives you a complete nice picture. You can close and sit down and relax and then listen to such kind of books. Okay, that gives you plenty of knowledge of what happened the earlier days and what kind of things they were using and things like that. Okay, for now it's okay. So I just started explaining one of the book readers and how a book was read and how you can listen to some of the audiobooks. That's all for today. We'll see some other time where we will explain about how to assemble a book, what is a prologue, what is an epilogue, what is a complete story, and what kind of adventures are there and things like that. Okay, for now it's okay. Bye now.